Well, Israel's finance minister says a widely condemned plan by the US president to relocate millions of Gazans to other countries is taking shape. His comments come after Israel announced that it is cutting off electricity supplies to Gaza, expanding its blockade of the territory. Last week, Israel cut off entry of goods after the first phase of its ceasefire with Hamas expired. Israel is pressing Hamas to release more hostages before negotiating the second phase of the deal, which is supposed to bring a lasting truce.
Fears are growing over the future of Gaza's fragile ceasefire. In Tel Aviv, relatives of hostages still being held there gathered to again demand their release. With many fearful a planned second phase of the truce between Israel and Hamas may never happen.
Danger is imminent. The war could be restarted even this week. They've already selected a name for their looming military operation. War will not bring our hostages home. It will kill them.
Since the expiry of the first phase of the ceasefire deal just over a week ago, Israel has launched several deadly strikes inside Gaza. It's also blocked aid from entering the Strip, all in a bid to pressure Hamas into releasing half of the remaining 58 hostages. In return, Israel says the current pause in fighting would be extended and negotiations could begin on a lasting truce. The blockade has caused food prices in Gaza to skyrocket during the Islamic holy month of Ramadan.
We live here in the ruins. We hang out our laundry on the rocks. Here in the middle of the rubble, we're breaking our Ramadan fast. But we're determined to stay in this land because it's ours.
Negotiations on Monday in Qatar over the second phase of the ceasefire come amid international efforts to map out Gaza's rebuild. Plans proposed by US President Donald Trump to kick Palestinians out of Gaza and turn it into a large resort have been widely rejected. A $53 billion rebuild deal proposed by Arab nations is being backed by the Organisation of Islamic Cooperation, representing nearly 60 predominantly Muslim countries. Several European nations also support the plan.
For more, let's bring in Amande Bazerolle now, Emergency Coordinator for Doctors Without Borders in Gaza. Welcome to you. Now, Israel has said today that it's cut off electricity to Gaza. Can you tell us anything about that?
Yes, it's a main problem. It's already restarted since December, and actually it helps to provide water to Gaza. So, as you may know, it's already a very huge problem in Gaza, and especially with the people coming back to the north. And that will reduce and cut a lot the production of water, which is definitely already not enough for the people living in Gaza today.
And so you've outlined one of the impacts there on water. What are some of the other impacts?
We're not widely connected, actually, so they're still relying a lot of fuel, which is not entering at the moment because it's been a week now that all the humanitarian aid is banned from entering into Gaza. So we need to rely to the stock that we have made during the truce. And it was only 600 trucks a day, which is just catching up with what has not been entering before. So we have very limited supply for a very limited number of days and weeks, according to the different items that we are talking about. So water is going to be an issue very quickly, and the food is going to be an issue very, very quickly. The different aid organizations that distributing food have 1 week supply to 2 weeks supply max at the moment, and they probably need to cut the ration to be able to last a bit longer.
And how is this impacting your ability to care for sick and injured Gazans?
So for us, it's also the people are going to get more sick if they don't have access to water, because we're talking about clean water to drink, but we're talking about domestic water to do whatever you have to do. So the people are getting sick because of not clean water accessible for them. They're getting sick because they stay outside. They're getting sick because they don't have enough food. The kids are getting into malnutrition, and so they get more sick every time they're going through an episode. It was a bit better during the truce, but we're going to see more and more children that are going to get sick. And then also we didn't manage to get all the things that we wanted. There are still a lot of items that were not allowed to enter. And we're talking about 110,000 people that have been injured during that war already, that needs to have crutches, need to have prosthetics, and still are denied any access to all those materials.
Now, it's a good time to remind our viewers that this is happening during Ramadan. And as you say, prices for food and gas and things like that are very high. How are people coping?
But they're not coping. That's the thing. Actually, talking about the gas is really missing at the moment. And there's 25 big bakeries that are subsidized by a humanitarian organization. And 6 of them had to stop already because of the lack of gas. We still have the flour for the moment, but there's no gas to prepare everything. So the coping mechanism, unfortunately, it's cutting some meals. So now they're going to have less food at the time of the Ramadan when they're already fasting. So the big risk is to see mainly the children and getting into malnutrition much quicker than they were even before.
I just want to ask you about a different aspect of all this, because Israel's finance minister says a plan by Donald Trump to displace Gazans is taking shape. Is your organisation, Doctors Without Borders, preparing for any kind of contingency if Palestinians are indeed forcibly relocated from Gaza?
We will wait to see what's going to happen, and there's no plan yet to any country to welcome the Gazan. And of course, we are never going to go ahead of that until it's planned. So the contingency that we have at the moment, it's already to see if the war will start, where can the people be? Because right now we have relocated some of the activities in the north. Maybe the people are going to go back to the south. So now we need to split already our activities inside Gaza, even before thinking of what's going to happen in the future.
Thank you very much for your time, Amande. That's Amande Bazerolle with Doctors Without Borders in Gaza. Thank you.
Let's bring in Shaina Low from the Norwegian Refugee Council. Good to have you with us on DW. Now, we've just seen in the report people there spending Ramadan surrounded by rubble. The prices for food and cooking gas are skyrocketing. How are the people coping?
Well, people are coping, of course, as best as they can, but there's limited food supplies. People are worried that as long as the siege on Gaza continues, that there won't be additional food. So we saw people rushing to the markets. I was in touch with a colleague just a couple of days ago in Gaza City who said that there simply was no cooking gas or fuel available in the markets. And so people are making do with what little they have, but we, and of course they, are pushing to reopen these crossings and allow for an influx of aid to return.
Now, what are you hearing from your staff on the ground about any aid making it into Gaza?
Well, it's now been a week since Israel closed the crossings, and so nothing is getting in. There was very little aid stockpiled because, of course, even though we had the 6-week temporary ceasefire in place, we still are operating in emergency mode. The needs are still tremendously high. And so organizations are continuing with their distributions, running down those stockpiles because people simply cannot wait.
Now, Israel, of course, says that the blockade is necessary to pressure Hamas into releasing the hostages still there. What's your response to that?
Well, humanitarian aid is not a privilege for Palestinians. It's a right. and it's something that shouldn't be used as a bargaining chip. Starvation cannot be used as a weapon of war. Israel has obligations as the occupying power controlling Gaza. Those obligations include making sure that the welfare of the people living under its occupation is provided for, and facilitating the entry of humanitarian assistance. Blocking humanitarian aid is a grave violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention, and it must be ended immediately.
Now, we also heard that as the talks resume, and you just described the humanitarian situation on the ground, that the international community, and especially Arab leaders, are currently pushing for a massive rebuild plan. Now, given the current situation, is that even realistic now?
Well, we, of course, need to be thinking about Gaza's future, and we know that Gaza's future is going to have Palestinians there. The most important thing when thinking about what that future looks like is ensuring that Palestinians are front and center in terms of leading reconstruction efforts, in terms of determining what type of future they want to have and what the future of Gaza should look like.
Now, just briefly to the end now, in this situation, do you think that the people in Gaza are set to stay? We heard one man there in the report saying, this is our land, we're here to stay. With the crisis that they're facing, will they remain, or do you think there'll be more refugees trying to get into neighboring countries?
Well, I think it was clear when the Netzarim corridor opened up just several weeks ago, Palestinians who had fled from northern Gaza to the south, who had been forcibly displaced to the south, immediately returned. And they knew they weren't expecting to find their homes there. They knew that there was going to be mountains and mountains of rubble, but they know that this is their home. And I think that they've sent a clear message that they intend to stay in Gaza.
All right. Thank you very much, Shaina Low from the Norwegian Refugee Council.